I had to tell myself for years, and I still tell myself this almost every day, I can't control that person for their better. I'm confident you are making a terrible decision, but it is your decision to make, and I can't control you. And when I started taking over for the business for my dad, there were times he's not a business person. He didn't make like business decisions. He made farm decisions. And I would think I could so easily siphon money away, not to steal from myself, but to like have as a bank account to pay this bill later that I know is coming due that we haven't been setting money aside for, right? Because farm bills are like $150,000, just crazy huge bills, and all your money comes in at once, and so it's like, well, we need to account for this accordingly, and finance this accordingly. Well, it would have been really easy for me to just take 6% off of every customer that came on in, put it in a separate bank account. But I was like, no, I'm not going to manipulate someone else's business. I'm going to tell him that I think you should do this. And if he doesn't do it, I can't control him for his better. So that would become tough. But to be fair, I'm sure he thought the same about me when I was doing stupid stuff and making dumb decisions. I still do it at times. And so, yeah.
Overpressure refers to the sudden increase in pressure above the surroundings caused by the wave generated when something explodes. It propagates outward from the origin, capable of causing impact, momentum, or disruption, depending on its intensity and distance. It is a critical factor in assessing the effects of a mission. Welcome to the Overpressure podcast, where we dive into the explosive world of business for entrepreneurs who are vets or veteran entrepreneurs.
Hey, I had a lot of fun with this episode of the Overpressure podcast. We had Nicholas Lirio joining us from Iowa, planting a lot of seeds, literally and figuratively. He is the president of Hosky Native Seeds, and we had a good time with this one. So I hope you enjoy it. And if you enjoy it, please like, subscribe, share, and help us get our own name out there.
What's up, everyone? We have Nicholas joining us today all the way from Iowa, where he does a couple different things and has some passions that we definitely want to tap into today. But, we just brought this up, but what got you started in the world of business?
Man, well, I would say first and foremost, thank you for having me on, Austin. It's very generous of you. But what got me started, it's in my genes, dude. My mom started business. My dad started business. My stepdad started business. My uncle started business. My aunt started business. It's just like, it's in there. I don't think I could have gotten away from it. Classic. I don't know if it was actually ADHD, but man, I couldn't sit still in school. I was always thinking about it. And by the time 7th and 8th grade came around, me and a couple friends were like, what about this passive income thing? I want to build a thing, and so we were talking about it. And then I ended up going to Bible college, and I was out in California at this Bible college in particular. They were like, it is a very righteous and biblical thing to start a business and do right by people and be a good example in the world. I was like, oh, that kind of sounds awesome. I kind of want to do that. And I worked for, you can look it up, Alex Branning. I was going to be like his 6th employee. Dude, the guy's huge now. And I worked for him for a little bit, and then I had to move on because I was busy with college. But he was just a small little guy now. He's a huge like marketing guru these days, and worked for him. And I remember watching how he operated, and he handled his family life and starting a business so well, and he got so much done, and he helped people. His motto behind the scenes was, I just want to give away as much as I can for free, and they'll come back and pay for something, but I'm just here to help people. And I was like, man, that's amazing. Yeah, I was 20. I didn't know anything, and I just thought I'd copy that. And then I got done with college, and my late father, he passed this summer. He had a prairie business, and he was truly a farmer. He wasn't like a business guy. He was a farmer. He was my stepdad, I think, technically. And so I just told him, hey, I'll help you transition. I'll help you step into the business and transition. He had a couple other employees, and he had like a dinky website and would get some e-commerce sales, but mostly just wholesale to other companies that were actually making money on his hard work. And I didn't know at the time, when I agreed to work with him, that's when his cancer that ended up taking his life was starting to develop. It was very divine timing. And I've been there a little over 5 years, and we've built out the team. We've built out the e-commerce, and he was so gracious to me. He let me make a lot of stupid business mistakes, and in business, you make, if you make a lot of decisions, you can minimize the mistakes and maximize the good decisions, and that's what we did. That's what we've been doing, and we've been running with it, and I found that I really loved it. I love setting up systems and having other people step into them. And I almost feel embarrassed about that sometimes, because that feels like almost lazy. But I enjoy doing it. And so, and I've been in the system for 5 years, so I've been a part of it. And then over the past few years, my wife and we started doing rentals just in the evenings. And my wife and she wanted to start a coffee truck, and so we just went all the way in and started a coffee shop and bought a building, and she does that now. And then my siblings and I, about a year and a half ago, started doing these family documentary things. We sit down and interview and film them, and so we kind of have all these parts. And I'm at the point in my life where I'm like, okay, no more things. I need to optimize on the things that are going on. And so it's been a fun transition, but business, it's just been a part of my life since I can remember.
Well, in that first role, were you in the marketing side of it, or what kind of position was that?
Are you talking about for Alex?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was sales, I think, technically, but he was such a good marketer that my lead list was so long, and it was getting added to so often I couldn't keep up with the calls. I mean, you would have had to call for 100 hours a week to be able to get through all of them. He was so good at what he did. So yeah, I was on sales, and he said, just keep your thumb on the pulse on what people are looking for, what they want, and then report back to them. And so I did some analytics in it as well, but mostly sales.
Yeah, so I imagine that experience of being exposed to excellent marketing and, tapping into the sales skill has definitely applied in the newer businesses, or they're not new, but new to you, and helped you grow those. But yeah, let's go into the system side, because that's a large part of what I do for us. And it does feel lazy when you hand stuff off, but that's necessary to move forward. How have you handled that? What kind of systems have you built?
Yeah, great question. So we also run a podcast, the Prairie Farm podcast. And I remember when my co-host and coworker at the time said we should do it, I looked him right in the eye. I was like, dude, nobody's going to listen to that thing. Nobody will listen to a podcast called the Prairie Farm podcast. And dude, I was so wrong. Yeah. We get tens of thousands of listeners, and I just don't understand why. I don't understand why, but all of a sudden it became a big deal of what we were doing. It became a big part of our marketing, and it just started consuming my life. I mean, just the editing and making the reels. Oh my goodness, making those reels terrible, And yeah, absolutely. And connecting with people and setting up meetings and all these things and shaking hands. And then all of a sudden you're getting invited to speak at things, and you're like, I'm not the expert. I just sit next to them. I'm the wrong guy. But it just started taking over my life. I wasn't able to sell. I wasn't able to do e-commerce. I wasn't able to do any of these things. And so that was probably the single biggest system setting up, and it didn't happen until last year. It happened when Claude got really good at Claude AI got really good at coding. I was able to code some stuff that would automatically scrape our podcast, make a transcript, go and help write a blog, and then I would have to rewrite it. But it cut down it was literally 16 hours a week of podcast time to about 4. And so that's probably the one that, it changed my life. It really did. I was less stressed. My wife was like, you were kind of getting miserable there for a while. I was editing podcasts at 7:30 at night after I promised her I'd be done at 5:30, and it's not good. Those systems, I would say sales, systems are really important, but the hard one in Native Seed is the supply chain. It's a pretty niche industry. And so I've had the privilege to see it from start to finish. I know where all kind of the wholesale stuff comes from. I'm really privileged to see a whole industry from start to where it ends up on the retail shelves. And you wouldn't be able to do that if it was something giant like, lumber or, some sort of tech. You wouldn't be able to be that into that world. But with such a small niche, something that maybe moves total $1 billion a year across all companies, the total addressable market isn't that big. So when I'm in that arena, systemizing where your production is going to come from is very tough. And that is something I have been working on to kind of give us an edge or give us a moat, is kind of in being able to know where our seed is going to come from next, because most of the other companies, including us so far, we just call around. It says, hey, how was your crop for this species? There might only be 5 people in the United States that grew that specific species. And so finding it can be tough. And then it's just like a bidding war against. So trying to figure out systems on supply chain, that is very difficult. And I consider it the challenge of my next year. Like I put it up on my board as like, this is what, so those kinds of systems are the ones that I'm hoping. And then, how fragile are they? Like, how often do I have to babysit the system is to me how successful it is. Like, is there actually an ROI, and how often am I coming back to patch it up?
Yeah, I like to look at that stuff from return on attention too. Like, I that's somebody else's phrase that I completely stole, but it's another way of looking at it, because obviously there's ROI, but like, okay, is this worth my time? And another part of it is breakage. Like, what are you going to break along the way as you change systems? Is that worth the increase? Like, if you're getting 10% more, but you're going to break 20%, like, okay, probably not necessarily worth it.
So the ROA, how do you gauge that?
It's a thought process, debating it with our operations manager, saying, is this change worth it? Like, okay, what's the ideal? What's like, what if happens if this doesn't work, when we're looking at system changes? And so there's sometimes metrics associated with that, like on the sales side, very easy to systemize and, track that. But, if it's something like anything to do with people, outside of hiring, but people management, leadership, all that kind of thing, you have to look at, how is this going to affect it? And, is this return, or is this investment of time and effort? Because that's what we have. We have our time and our effort that we can control. So is there something better? Like, I'm a huge fan of the one thing philosophy of what's the biggest, most impactful thing that we can do, and let's do that first.
Yeah, I love that. We have a retreat with our team to kind of look over the year and the harvest. They're finishing up harvest this week, actually, kind of as I speak. And that's going to be one of my 3 big questions. What is the biggest lever that we can pull for next year? Because we all have 100 ideas, but what's the big lever we can pull? Because we can only pull so many.
Yeah. Tell me about being in a yearly business, because there absolutely is seasonality. How do you handle that?
Well, there's advantage and disadvantages of it. The advantage, and also kind of a disadvantage, all of our income comes in twice a year. Comes in end of November, December, when you do a fall planting, or people need seed for their fall planting, and then it comes into spring, kind of halfway through April to halfway through June. And what's great is the bankers understand that. They go, so I can show them, hey, here are the invoices that have come in so far compared to last year, percentage wise, or the past 5 years. I should expect this many more invoices. And so if I run out of cash, I actually have a lot of leeway on them loaning operating notes, which I don't love. I love to do things with cash, but when it comes down to it, I never have to stress, holy crud, are we going to make payroll? I just don't have to stress about that kind of stuff. So that's a great advantage. The disadvantage is it's make or break every single year, and there are high stakes in short periods of time. And I spend a huge chunk of my time figuring out, how am I going to do my marketing for 3 months out of the year, right? And I'm doing a lot of setup, and I'm doing a lot of prep, and I'm trying to, I'm making Facebook ads to be pre-Facebook ads, to be pre-Facebook ads for targeting, right? And so that I can hit them. And it's a high-end, not a high-end product, but it's a more expensive product. Our average price points last year is like $4,100, just because people that, they're usually covering 10 acres or so with the seed. So there's quite a bit of price of that, and wildflowers and things involved, and those are hard to grow. So they're a little more expensive. So I know, like, my CAC is like, I'm trying to think, last year, it was really hard to track, because you had to track like over several different posts. But it ended up being like $110 or something, which in other industries would break you, but it's not bad for the the prairie industry and our average sales. So that's kind of what we're going through with the yearly things. And then another thing is you can't just pivot. You can't just,
Right.
oh crap, there's not enough rattlesnake master out there. Rattlesnake master takes 3 years to grow. You don't get a harvest for 3 years.
Wow.
And so again, one of the other questions I'm going to ask is, what do we need to keep growing? Like looking at the market, where's the consumer headed? What are the government agencies wanting to buy for their projects on the land? So we are trying to predict that, and it's tough, and you get it right and you get it wrong. But again, you mitigate the mistakes and you maximize on the decision you make well, and we just go from there. So those are some of the challenges and advantages of a yearly cycle.
It seems like you guys have to look forward a lot more, because like we're more or less on a monthly cycle, and we definitely spend time looking forward. But what are you guys looking forward, especially with a small TAM? What levers can you pull? Like, are there other markets that you've looked at that are parallel? Like, what's that look like looking forward for you guys?
Yeah, super good question. Well, we spend a lot of energy expanding the TAM, like our company does. And sometimes I'm frustrated. I'm like, I wish that other company would just write me a thank you note for the sales they're getting right now. Especially with the podcast. So our statement is, we at Hosky Native Seeds provide education and native seeds for landowners and people who care about their investments. And the education piece, I mean, it's like half of all of our marketing, and it's kind of just brand. And I just feel like I'm just tossing money into the ether. And then it shows up. It doesn't show up 6 months later. It shows up like 24 months later. It shows up quite a bit later. And so, yes, there definitely are. We've been building out brand and hopefully market shift on, specifically with hunting. Hey, let's not just plant miscanthus, which is invasive. It's not from here. Let's plant switchgrass and big blue stem. Those are native. We grow those. They're better for the ecosystem. And so there's a lot more. There's a lot more to be had there. Now, another piece that is an advantage, even though it's a small TAM, the market mostly understands this is a long-term investment, and they want a change. They want something different. They're kind of bought in. And so we have a good story, and we have a product that matches the kind of lifestyle that they want to have. And that is a huge advantage, because the people who are calling us are like, hey, I've got a 10-acre homestead and I want to put 4 acres of native pasture in for my horses and my sheep. Right. And then they shoot us a call. Well, the nice thing about that is they're not thinking, I need this to show up in 2 months or I'm going to churn. They're thinking, this is a 4-year process that I'm going to be in it with this other company. And so not only do we, there's an expectation of it being longer, we have a lot of touch points where we can blow their mind for them to refer us in that 4-year process. Like, we shoot an email twice in the first year to everyone who bought from us last year that says, hey, just a reminder, it probably looks weedy, and that's okay. Everyone else's does too. The reason we did that was because I tracked how many phone calls I got one year of, hey, nothing's showing up, it was like 140 in the summer, and just like people wanting to know why nothing was showing up. And I was like, oh, we got to address this. This is not good. So.
Well, that's a great example of return on attention, though, is, looking at the problems or your customer interaction points and saying, hey, this is taking a lot of time, or this is a frequently asked question. Like, let's make a system around this. And if that system just keeps running, you don't get that complaint, and your business looks better because of it, and gives you the chance for referrals rather than complaints. So I love that.
Yeah. I was a waiter at Olive Garden, and my manager said, I love it when a table has a terrible experience, because you now have an opportunity to make a customer for life. Because if they ordered something for $80, you give them a $160 gift card. Hey, here's this meal and your next meal. Totally on us, right? They're going to come back. They knew you went above and beyond to take care of them. So when we've got another sales guy, and I tell them, like, hey, complaints, that is a good thing. Some people are just calling because they're upset and their life's terrible and they're going to let you have it because of it. But some people are genuinely concerned about the product that you provided for them, and assuming that we were have a good product to provide and actually have good service, we're going to turn it around and they're going to love us for it.
Yeah. So what are you guys working on now? Obviously there's the consistency, but what's kind of the next project for you to expand? And I guess this leads us into the other business as well. And we can go into that next.
Yeah. Man, expanding, that's kind of a big topic. So even in the native seed industry, there's consolidation, and between Nebraska and California, 2 companies have bought all 20 of the companies that existed there. And then, but in Iowa, we've got really great black dirt, so people are able to make money a little more easily. So there's about 7 companies between Minnesota and Missouri that are kind of like, no, we're not going to sell. We like the native seed industry where we're at. We've been approached by a couple other companies that recognize what we're good at: online retail. We're good at e-commerce. And the nice thing about e-commerce is you get paid almost double for your seed, right? Instead of just wholesaling it off somewhere.
Right.
But I mean, it's a big lift to catch people online. And usually if you're a prairie farmer, keep in mind the word farmer, you're not an e-commerce, designer. You're not a funnel creator. That doesn't overlap very much. And so I've been working with a couple other companies to be able to provide that for them. And my uncle, he's the VP of marketing for a medium-sized manufacturing company. And he told me, he said, look, Nicholas, if everybody goes to you to buy seed, it does not matter who grows it. And that really stuck with me. So just, and not trying to control all the native seed that goes out there in the market, but just saying like, hey, I'll boost your sales way more. We'll open up the TAM that'll help everybody. And I'll get a little piece of the pie, and help and design those without accidentally creating the monster that swallows us, with other companies. So that's kind of where we're at right now. We also we're on year 7 of tracking true ROI per species. And it's hard to do. Again, a lot of species, none of them come up the first year. Most come up the second year. And a few species, you don't get a harvest till the 3rd year. And so it's pretty tricky to actually figure out your ROI, or not tricky. It just takes a long time. And so we've been tracking that and had great progress. And like we said earlier, we're finally starting to see which levers are bigger. We just didn't know before, because there's species where I might make $10,000 per acre gross, but we were out there 8 times, it took us 2 days each time to hand hoe that field, and it stole us from all this other work that we could have been doing. And there's time and place for that, but we just got to figure out which levers are best for us to pull.
Yeah. So what was the inspiration? I know you started the second company with your siblings. What was the inspiration for starting that?
Man, so I have a great grandfather who was an incredible man in World War II, and I'll save you the story. But he survived he was Filipino. He's in the Philippines. He survived as a prisoner of war in a Japanese imprisonment camp in the Philippines. And he had written my dad a letter when my dad was maybe 20, just detailing out the accounts, like a 10-page letter. I was like, man, I've never met this man, and I am so grateful I know where I came from. I wish I had this for all of my great grandparents. I remember just mentioning that to my dad. And again, I've done now 300 something episodes of podcasting, and I'm like, I could just sit down with these people and hit record and like go through with it. And my dad was like, that is a really, really good idea. You need to do that. And I want to be clear, so my stepdad, I also call my dad, he started the farm, the prairie farm, but my biological dad, he's Filipino. He's the one I'm talking to about this. And so and my brother, he's in the film industry in Atlanta, Georgia. And I was like, hey, if I like sat down and filmed these, would you edit them up and get them? He's like, man, yeah, that's a great idea. You should do that. And then I was talking to my sister and brother-in-law. My brother-in-law is the director of marketing, and my sister was the director of onboarding for my mom's company. And I was like, man, between the 4 of us, we have an onboarder or a marketer, an onboarder, an interviewer. Yeah. And I was like, and we're like good at what we do, we're high level professionals for it. We could do this. And you know what? I'll tell you what, Austin, it is the hardest It's the easiest business to run and the hardest business to market. It is so tough. And our price point, there's not that many companies that do it, but we're right kind of low average for what we do. We charge $3,200 and we like go to your house and do it. And it is so hard. And here's what we get all the time. That is a fantastic idea. Oh, awesome. Would you be interested? I don't really have anything to say. So we really had to pivot hard. And we found that people over 75-ish just aren't interested in sharing their life. But people who are around 65 are. So we had to convince people who are 65, hey, we know that you're probably too young. Like you should wait 15 years, but don't wait 15 years. You should do it now while you can still remember everything. And when we started pivoting on that marketing, that really helped. And to be honest, I could have a little more with it conversations. There was a lot of trying to remember when we were interviewing 81-year-olds. So, and it's been awesome. And we've even branched out a little bit doing like founder stories for companies. And, we did another one recently, like a marketing thing for a company. But yeah, we really like it. And people ask me like, don't you get bored of just sitting and hearing those old people talk? I'm like, I get to hear.
There's some cool stories, I bet.
Well, yeah. And I get the best 3 hours of someone's life, like 70 years worth of life that they've lived. I get to see the best 3 hours of it. It's awesome, so I love it. And
I don't know if this would work, but like from the memory standpoint, it'd be an interesting thing to do like every 10 years and to see somebody's progression. I don't know how you guys would price that, but that would be a really cool thing as well. I mean, so much of our life is online, and I'm excited that our kids and grandkids are going to get to see that. But there's definitely a lot of stories in there that I haven't told. So running multiple businesses, working with family. I'm sure there's situations that come up that are full of pressure and stress. And I think Sierra Nevada has a quote on their thing that's like brewed and argued over by family. So I'm sure you guys have your arguments. How do you handle that pressure?
So separate from the business pressures, I'll kind of the pressures that come that because I'm working with family, and if I wasn't working with family, we wouldn't experience these pressures. There's a couple things. One, we're strong Christians, and what I mean by that is not that we say loudly that we're Christians. We like really try to live it out. So before every single meeting, and we meet for 45 minutes every week. If we need to meet longer, we will. And at the start of every meeting, it is somebody's turn to pray, right? So we just pray through, and we believe what we are doing is adding value to people's lives. And so I think first and foremost, that is in there. No matter how good of a system you have, if you have flawed people in it, that you're going to have issues. So the idea is just for us to be soft-hearted, open to what we believe God is directing us to, and kind and gentle. And remember, like, I love this person with all my heart, sitting across the computer screen or across the table from me right now. So that really, really helps. The other things is that helps. And this actually was part of the light bulb moment when I was like, we should start this business. Not only is my brother better at editing, I hate doing it. And so when I think, brother, the lighting should, and I know how to use Premiere Pro and I do it for stuff, but what is the lighting? I don't really like the lighting. I remember, wait, I don't want to edit. You know what, brother, you got it. That's all you, man. I believe in you. And so that kind of stuff really helps, and just being busy. Like I don't have time to step into your lane and micromanage you. That goes a really long ways. And then another thing that really helped is we were contractual. We like signed a thing that said, this is your lane, this is my lane, this is how much money I'm putting in, this is how much money you're putting in, this is how much you own, this is how much I own, this is how much you get paid, this is how much I get paid. And we were pretty detailed. We had some other people we respect look over it, make sure that it looked good, and then contractually gave people an out. And I have firsthand seen family go into business together and it just falls apart. And for that reason, I don't go 50-50. I'll go 25, 25, 25, 25, but I will not go 50-50 because you can landlock in that. And it gets very frustrating and you feel trapped. And for someone who likes business, likes forward movement, like setting up systems, that is not how I want to live my life. I don't want to feel trapped to someone else's indecision or my disagreement with them.
Yeah. The preparation seems to be such an important part. And, preparing at the beginning of the meeting, preparing before you ever start.
Yeah.
We didn't do that the first time around. And then
Hmm.
I stepped away from our business for a little bit and came back. And the second time we did prepare in a similar way. We wrote down exactly what our roles were. And that's made all the difference. And
Yeah.
staying in your lane a little bit. Like, I got that advice from the Hormozis, and that's helped tremendously. Like, hey, you work on this, I'll work on this. So I'm with you on that one. What's been like the funniest moment, or maybe on the opposite side, working with family?
The funniest moment. I mean, I could tell you some real terrible funny moments. I am okay. So, I mean, this is like a little TMI, but man, I had eaten something fierce the night before. I don't know what it was. And my stepdad had a really weak stomach. And I was in the office. I was there alone. And a lot of times I'm at the office. I know, like, okay, I'm here alone today. And so honestly, I was just letting him rip. And the poor guy walks in. He goes, "Man, it smells like onions." And I was like, "Oh yeah, sorry, Dad. I farted earlier." And he started hacking so bad. Like I thought he was going to throw up. He like sprinted out the door. And hours later, one of the farm hands was with him. And he was like, yeah, every time he would think about it, he would start gagging again, just like needing to throw up. It is so terrible. But I don't know. We still laugh about that today. It's just like working with family. It just wouldn't have been the same. You know what I mean? If it wasn't with a family member. So yeah, that killed me. I think one of the like hardest moments with family is and I guess I won't get into details, but I had to tell myself for years, and I still tell myself this almost every day, I can't control that person for their better. I'm confident you are making a terrible decision, but it is your decision to make, and I can't control you. And when I started taking over for the business for my dad, there were times he's not a business person. He didn't make like business decisions. He made farm decisions. And I would think I could so easily siphon money away, not to steal from myself, but to like have as a bank account to pay this bill later that I know is coming due that we haven't been setting money aside for, right? Because farm bills are like $150,000, just crazy huge bills,
Right.
and all your money comes in at once, and so it's like, well, we need to account for this accordingly, and finance this accordingly. Well, it would have been really easy for me to just take 6% off of every customer that came on in, put it in a separate bank account. But I was like, no, I'm not going to manipulate someone else's business. I'm going to tell him that I think you should do this. And if he doesn't do it, I can't control him for his better. So that would become tough. But to be fair, I'm sure he thought the same about me when I was doing stupid stuff and making dumb decisions. I still do it at times. And so, yeah.
There's a lot of lessons in there. But setting something aside, no matter what, is probably a good business decision. But also, you have new school and old school as well. Like, and they don't always work together, but like there's just reasons why both work. So trying to find that harmony between the new and the old is definitely something we all need to do. Not to mention AI, which brings up something. What do you enjoy talking about that you rarely get the chance to?
Man, well, I live in rural Iowa, and I rarely, unfortunately, get the chance to talk to people about system automation, which I know we've kind of talked about as well. But we're just not as fast paced, not as aggressive out here about business, and so the automation piece is not as much of the part. But then I think the other thing is margin. I sometimes I bring it up. I like to take shifts at the coffee shop for my wife, and I just really enjoy having the regulars come in and getting to chat with them. And sometimes I'll kind of drop it in there, right? Because you always ask people, how you doing? And they're like, busy. And you could do something about that. But the idea of using up our margin isn't optional. It's like you either do it or you die on the inside, and you probably die early, die young. I mean, that's just like researched and studied. If you're overstressed and you fill your schedule to the brim all the time and you never have any chance to recoup your energy, you die earlier. And so that idea of margin is really, really important to me and something I really struggle with. So.
Yeah, that's true, whether you're talking about the financial side of it or, we have some friends that they take the quarterly retreat. They're also a husband and wife team. And I think that's so powerful. We haven't put it on the schedule. We really need to, but we have taken those trips, and it's massive. Because one thing that happens in that margin is you get the chance to think, and you get the chance to talk, and you get that connection that I think is kind of missing from the world these days in a lot of cases. But, like taking the margin out for yearly bills, like if you don't take that margin out, then you can be in a really bad place if things are not a good year. So I'd agree with that fully.
And I think,
go ahead.
If you don't mind, something that I'm pretty passionate about is sinking funds, because people don't talk about them in finance. It's like your car is going to die, and I know that you don't have a payment on it right now, and that's awesome. You need to save $400 a month for a new car in order for you to not have a payment, going forward. And so the sinking fund, but also the emergency sinking fund, the for us the biannual property tax sinking fund. It's like sinking fund's like a quarter of our total income as a couple, and we just have to set it aside. And then I watch this bank account get really, really big and then just like plummet, and I'm like, oh man. But that sinking fund, it's the financial example of margin, and you got to have it. And I think it's not in our habits to think through margin as a necessity. We think of it as the afterthought, but it really should be like the second or third thing you put in your calendar and in your finance budget.
Yeah. Heather, before we ever met, had started using Profit First, and I loved that. And I think that's a good model because it does account for that. And Ramsey, who's local for us, talks about it constantly of, hey, make sure you have something set aside. Because when trouble does come, because it doesn't, unless you have the sinking fund, and then it seems to not come as often. But it's, man, I wish people caught onto that more, that you need to be prepared. What do you think is important? Like, obviously we've been talking about important things that the world really needs to pay attention to, but what else do you think is going on right now that doesn't get the attention that it really needs
in the world?
In the world, what do people need to know?
Yeah. Man, I'm ready and excited for this one, brother. The United States technically as a GDP is positive. But if you pull out data centers and finances, which is basically making money off of data centers going in and the AI build out, it's a negative. Who doesn't get any money from those data centers or the finances? So the finances is the East Coast, the data centers is the West Coast, is the Midwest. The South has been poor for quite a long time, but the Midwest is getting poorer and poorer and poorer, but it's not showing through. And also, we're like the agriculture states, right? We're the agriculture states. Well, all the money is siphoning in agriculture to John Deere, Cargill, who buys corn, Bayer, who produces Roundup to be sprayed on corn, and very few other places. Maybe some landowners who have lots and lots of land are doing well in here. And so there is a class separation. That's happening, and it's getting harder and harder for people from the Midwest to move out to the East and West Coast. It's becoming a problem where we can't even go vacation there because yes, I only make $22 an hour, and that's fine here for the Midwest, but I can't even go and buy an ice cream soda over in Monterey, California, if I want to go vacation, because it costs $28, and so there's just I'm
$20 for burrito.
Yeah, I know. And I used to live in California, and I understand, like, it's a different place, but I'm not saying that it is wrong, the distribution of resources, but consolidation is of power and of resources is a human what would you say, in the nature of humans. And the Midwest is losing right now. And I'm passionate about the Midwest. Our resources are getting mined. Iowa has the worst water quality, and it's because of our current ag practices. And we don't even make the money from the ag practices. So
Right.
what I'm not doing is calling out like, oh, these big companies, they're just doing terrible, blah, blah, blah. I think as consumers in the Midwest, we need to start figuring it out. And I think as we need to start putting more resources collectively into our universities so that our universities are the head of something, right?
Mhm.
I mean, maybe agriculture, but even that's debatable. I want our universities to be like, yeah, I go to the Midwest to study this thing, and nobody does that. You go to a Midwest university if you live within a few hours of that university. So I'm
Yeah,
passionate about it.
education is definitely a huge system in that. What other systems would you say like can be improved? Like what changes could be made to make it the powerhouse that it really was?
Mm.
And, turn that environment around where, because they are creating the value, but they're not capturing that value. So what else needs to change in order to capture that value?
Yeah, that is a super great question. I've been thinking about this. So Iowa specifically, and I believe Minnesota isn't. Iowa is aging. Missouri's not. Missouri is aging. I believe Illinois is aging, and I think Kansas and Nebraska are aging as well. And I believe Minnesota is not getting older in terms of average age. So what does that mean? That means the people who are here are staying here, and they're probably living longer. That's a positive thing. But it means that the young people, one of two things, the young people are either leaving or we're not having as many kids. Both of those are a huge issue for a population in 50 years. Huge. Because at 50 years old, that's when you're quote unquote producing the most for the economy. You're getting paid the most. Your mind is worth the most. You still have, some energy left before you're in your 60s and you're really slowing down. So right now, we don't have those people here in Iowa that are going to be 50. We don't have the population we need. So I think, and then the other piece, not just not having as many kids, which I'm not trying to tell everyone you need to have more kids, but it's kind of left our ethos as a society to that. The Bible says that children are a gift from God. Like, man, it's like many quivers and basically
Yeah.
a lot of arrows in your quiver. I believe is what it
Children
says.
are to arrows in your quiver, something like that.
Yeah, and that it's just kind of left our culture, like that mindset, whether it's religious or not, that mindset's kind of left the culture, and that's a problem. But then the second piece is like kids don't want to, or young people don't want to be here because society values don't necessarily line up with what Iowa has to offer. We've got wonderful spaces outdoors. We've got great hunting and fishing. We've got the friendliest people in the United States. Like they're lovely, amazing neighbors, big, nice yards that you can tend if you want to, and take care of your space, quiet, slower pace of life. Those are the values that Iowa has to offer. And that's not enticing to 28, 30, 35-year-olds. They want to make a little more money and they want to do youth sports, which is like a whole thing that I rant about. and so they go elsewhere where they can do that better. And I don't necessarily fault them. Many times I go like, I think I could make way more money in Dallas where I used to live, or in Tennessee, you know what I mean? Or Atlanta, Georgia, where my brother lives. Like I'm confident like my life would be quote unquote better because what I believe is better is values aligned with those places and not what we have here in Iowa. So I think realigning our value. Yeah. And I think those are some of the systems. There's others. I think agriculture is an issue, but without government oversight, which I just basically am almost never a fan of. I don't see a way where it doesn't consolidate without a lot of people. Tell people this, the United States actually doesn't, I believe we don't pay enough for food. We pay between 11 and 16%. The rest of the world pays, even first world countries pay 25%, and they have much healthier food. So we've opted for less healthy, cheaper, more consumer or consumption, and because of that, yeah, we get a lot of cheap food, but we pay for it in healthcare. And if you come to the Midwest, dude, we're really overweight. We're super overweight over here, and it's a problem. And so without fixing that issue, I don't think you fix the agriculture issue.
Yeah, and I mean, we are kind of on the same story of, we were living in the country in North Carolina, and we actually moved to Nashville, to a big city, because we had the opposite side of it. We couldn't find the people to hire because everybody is moving to the cities. And like, I would love to stay in the country, but, pursuing that business need has drawn us here. And like, this isn't our long term, but it is a problem all around, even for the people who do want that life. The opportunities are drawn into the cities. And I think that's been true for a long time, but I don't think it needs to be as much anymore. So I don't know if I have
that is. What do you think is changing that we should be able to move out into the country more? Because I like that thought process.
Starlink.
Yeah,
me and one of my team members were talking about like the difference robots are going to make, and how easy life could potentially be if everything is set up and prepared for you, because they can work 23 hours a day or whatever they need to charge. And that's pretty wild to think about, because we're maybe doing the peripheral of our life like 3-4 hours a day at most. And like, if all of that is taken care of, and then, okay, you have so much extra capacity for a robot to do something for you. I mean, from the farming side, that could be massive. Because I think
in 10 years, it will be uncommon to see a human in a field, driving a tractor, or, you know what I mean? The amount of money that goes into just designing cabs for a tractor, if you could rip that out, let alone paying someone to be out there,
Yeah, I followed Joel Salatin and I've watched his stuff for a long time. And so I've seen the dichotomy between the tech-driven approach and the people-driven approach, and it's wild to look at how much volume now one person can do farming-wise compared to like even 50 years ago. So it'll be interesting to watch how that develops, but I think, the human connection is coming back. Like, people are absolutely wanting that, and I think, if you're looking at it from the marketing side, that's something Iowa absolutely has to offer, of like human connection and amazing neighbors. And so I don't think we're done with this shift of people going to the country. I think things end up being more balanced, especially as everybody gets access to the ease of Amazon Prime in an hour, because that'll happen with robots too.
Oh yeah. Drones, and yeah, absolutely.
So I don't know if that'll shift cities, but population tends to solve itself too. So
yeah.
Very cool. Well, it's been a pleasure talking with you. Where can people find out more? Obviously, you have your show. Where can people find you?
Yeah. So Hosky, spelled Hoksey, nativeseeds.com. If you're into like prairie or hunting or wildflower gardens or bee and butterfly gardens, that's what we do. If you're looking for someone to interview your elderly grandma for a documentary, rootsandstory.com, just how it sounds. But yeah, otherwise theprairiefarm.com is where I end up spending most of my energy online. So
very cool. And then the last thing I'll ask is, for somebody looking at changing their lifestyle, and maybe has been stuck in the city, what advice would you give them?
Looking to change their lifestyle and kind of feel stuck in the city. Oh man. I think lifestyle sustainability is rare, and we admire the people who can do it on their own, but basically impossible. So if you're going to I had some friends who decided that their kids wouldn't have cell phones in school, and Jonathan Haidt says, you cannot do it alone. You must find other parents that will do it with you. So if you're going to be different than the current around you, you need to find a few people. And I've found that true. Every time I take that advice, it is 100x for my effort. It's not like 3x if I have 2 other friends. It's like 100x on my capability to do it. So if you found other people that were willing to slow down with you and have those hard turnoffs, in the evening at 6:30 or whatever to decide, hey, we're going to slow down, or we're not going to do the youth sports that can consume people's lives, or, all these things, like find someone who will do it with you.
Yeah. Community. It's what it comes down to in the end. Well, thank you, Nicholas. And, I'll have to order from some seeds at some point when we have a yard big enough to do something with. So
Yeah.
thanks,
Awesome.
man.